valley, I searched through the stars, came out with nothing but hurts and scars. I feared my reflection and hid from my shame, lived in the shadows, embraced my pain, bound to the darkness would he see, past all my sin and set me free. Your grace doesn't see my failures, your grace doesn't see my the beauty in it To think that I deserve to die, but now I'll be where angels are. To think that I deserve to die, but now I'll be where angels are. To think that I deserve to die, but now I'll be where angels fly. To think that I deserve to die, but now I'll be where angels fly.
Good evening, sisters. Tonight, each one of the elders' wives are going to share about what we have been learning in the last few weeks. For those of you who are new to our church family, my name is Irene Gifford. My husband is Lincoln, one of the elders here in Hartford. We have 3 adult children who are members of our sister churches in Atlanta, Central New Jersey, and Denver. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my background. I grew up in New York on Long Island, and the 6th of 7 children of an Irish and Italian Catholic family. My grandparents came over from Italy and Ireland. I was fortunate to have parents who embraced people from other cultures and countries. When I was in high school, we had a Bolivian student live with us. My dad was active in Rotary International, and we often had visitors from other countries like India and Brazil. With this encouragement, I traveled extensively in Europe during my college years and spent 1 year learning French in Switzerland. I ultimately joined the Paris mission team after becoming a disciple in 1979. We lived in Paris for 6 years, helping to build a dynamic church there. I always believed that as long as an individual worked hard, they would succeed. That doors would open for them, and if it wasn't God's will, they would be shut, but others would open. I don't think I ever thought that myself as benefiting in society because of the color of my skin. What I have come to understand these past few weeks is that I have been insensitive to the plight of others. With exception to being discriminated against, but for being a woman, I have not had the struggles many of you have experienced due to racial injustice. I now see that I did benefit from my family's education and the position in our town, from their support and the ability to send me to college. I wanted to tell you that I have really appreciated hearing the vulnerable and painful sharing from many of you. I was humbled and sad to hear your stories. I'm praying that I will not just see, but also act when I see any form of injustice. In Psalm 139, verses 23 to 24, it says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." You know, God is opening my eyes and seeing if there is an offensive things in me. And I have the power, I believe, with God's help to change me. And so that is my goal, and I pray that it is yours as well. And I'm also praying that America is listening and that we are going to start seeing changes all over our country. But it really starts with me. And I pray that this too, you know, that in our church family that we are going to see more love and more empathy. I wrote a poem last week that I would like to share with you. It is entitled, "Your Pain." You are hurting, my sister. I am sorry I did not see. My eyes were closed to thee, to the repeated injustice, the malice, things that should not be, all around our blessed country. When will it change, you say? Will it one day? We're supposed to be free. Please, God, let us be. Open the eyes of men so they see all the inequality. It is hard to forgive, turn a cheek as I live. So bear with me, I say. I pray my love can help take your pain away. Yet God is the one who heals. He sees you, he feels the suffering within. He watched his own son be beaten and scorned, all for us, undeserving, forlorn. God is our hope, so let us begin to listen, to defend any nearby friend, a brother, a neighbor, a stranger in need. Be the one who takes the lead. Be the one who shows you care. Be not afraid. Remember Jesus is there, guarding you from above, giving you his strength, giving you his love. Thank you for letting me share tonight.
Thank you, Irene, for your thoughts and that amazing poem and your heart in that poem. I mean, we just really appreciate that. Good evening, sisters. I am Nancy Fuda. For those of you who do not know me, my husband Jim is also an elder here at the Heart, and I just wanted to share with you some of my experiences that God has reminded me of as a white woman, how social injustice creeps in and how blinded I was to the pervasiveness of it. Coming into church and becoming a disciple brought me together with people of all different shapes, colors, background, and so forth. The diversity was amazing, and I love it. It was because of this church when my son Michael married a brown-skinned woman whose family is from Trinidad, I didn't think anything of it. Michelle was the daughter I always wanted. She is a joy and a blessing to our family. But honestly, if I'm going to be real, if this had been before becoming a disciple, I'm not sure I would have felt the same. I would have cared more about what my family thought, what society thought, rather than rejoicing that my son had found his soulmate. After they married, my mom shared a story, a conversation she had with a relative in her early 40s who said, "I can't believe Michael married a black woman." My mom replied, first of all, she is not black, and so what if she was? She is a beautiful brown-skinned woman, and if you're going to show your ugly side, then at least get the facts straight. My mom had my son and my daughter-in-law's back. I often wondered, would I have done the same? Would I have been silent? Would I have been a conflict avoider, which is my nature? Would I have said something and been angry and said something in anger? I don't know. But fast forward to today, I see silence as compliance and the importance of not being colorblind, as Lincoln so humbly shared at midweek. When my grandson was about 2, I had an opportunity to speak up like my mom did. I was approached by a white woman at the food store. She came up to me and asked, "What is he?" I was confused. I was like, "My grandson?" She said, "Well, he's mixed, isn't he?" Very sarcastically. And I remember I looked at her and I just said, "He's like the United Nations. What are you?" The woman didn't know how to react to that. She had no idea what I meant, so she walked away. In that moment, I found the way this woman approached me and the way she asked her question was so insensitive. My mind flooded with thoughts of the insensitivity of people, how society doesn't accept mixed marriages, and wondered what my grandson would face in the future. I, as his white grandmother, would not experience what he might. Recently, I took my grandkids, who are 4 and 2, to see the horses at the complex we now live at. There was a white woman attending one of the horses. I said good morning, and she turned slightly to see who was speaking, and then turned right back to the horse. I continued to ask questions, but felt she really didn't want to engage in a conversation. Another white woman and her grandson came to the barn. When she saw them, she was so friendly and asked the little boy if he wanted to feed the horse. He said no, but my grandson said, "I want to feed the horse." The woman turned slightly, took a carrot out of her pocket, and went ahead and fed the horse. I was like, oh my, what just happened? Being with my grandkids, I was silent. I just said, sorry guys, due to the COVID, it's probably not a good idea to feed the horse, so why don't we just continue on our walk? These experiences in no way compare to what my black and brown brothers and sisters have gone through day after day, year after year, for decades. These experiences have helped me not live with my eyes half closed. There is good and bad and evil in this world. It has been this way since the beginning, when the first murder took place between two brothers in the book of Genesis. So how am I dealing with all that is recently happening? I'm turning to God and asking myself some questions, not just in regard to social injustice, but also about my marriage, other relationships, being quarantined. I'm looking at myself in the mirror. I'm asking myself, is my life and doctrine lining up? Am I living in accord to the fruits of the Holy Spirit? Psalm 141:3 says, set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. I haven't always been keeping a guard over my lips, and this is reminding me that I need to watch what I say. My questions go on and on as I continue to examine myself. My two beautiful grandchildren mean the world to me. I want to protect them like a lioness protects her cubs. I need to show them God's love and help them to have the tools needed to navigate in a world both good and bad. Racism, bigotry, prejudice, stereotyping are all wrong. I need to be a voice, not a conflict avoider or silent when opportunities come, so they can learn the difference between love and hate and how to treat others the way God wants us to treat everyone. When George Floyd died, I didn't call a dear friend in this church right away. She was so hurt and angry. I was devastated that I had caused her such pain and that she felt I didn't care. I love this sister more than anything, and it broke my heart. The word family came up. Families care. They show love. They go through ups and downs. They have each other's backs, and they mess up. I did. When we call our church a family, we need to be that inside and outside. Just as I want my grandkids to know I will be there for them through all their ups and downs of life, I want my sisters to feel I am there for them too. God says in John 13:35, everyone will know you are my disciples if you love one another. I want to be the family member who's putting that into practice. I am learning, trying to make changes, a work in progress. Thank you, sisters, for letting me share.
Sisters, good evening. My spirit is elevated, and as I soak in the sincere words from the hearts of Nancy and Irene. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Nancy. It is gratifying to have our experience named, lifted up, discussed, and considered worthy of everyone's attention. I'm Loida Nicholson, and I'm the wife of Ian Nicholson, who is an elder in our church. When I thought about what I can share tonight, words took flight. The Spirit led me to a book which I've purchased in BJ's. So most of what I'm going to say tonight is actually taken from the book. And it's entitled, I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. She's a female writer, and she's a Christian, and she inspires leadership on racial justice in America. It brings me no pleasure to speak of the hatred inflicted on our black and brown souls, the stories of discrimination and pain and injustices large and small that populate our lives. It is exhausting, I know, when we try to talk about our pain. It is exhausting and disappointing when we're called divisive, negative, and toxic. And I know it makes many of us angry. It's frustrating that there were so, and I emphasize there were so few acceptable occasions for our pain and rage to be addressed. Rest assured that we serve a God who experienced and expressed righteous anger. One of the most meaningful passages in the Bible, passages of scriptures for me, is found in the New Testament, where Jesus leads a one-man protest inside the temple walls. He shouts at the corrupt temple officials, overturns furniture, sets animals free, blocks the doorway with his body, and carries a weapon through the place. Jesus throws folks out the building, and in so doing creates space for the most marginalized to come in: the poor, the wounded, and the children. Jesus' righteous anger led to freedom, the freedom of belonging, the freedom of healing, and the freedom of participating as full members in God's house. Collectively, we at the heart will use our anger as a force for good, to see and imagine a world, a better world that does not yet exist. We at the heart are committed. You heard my sister's hearts. We are committed to fueling a righteous movement toward justice and freedom. We'll focus on proclaiming the human dignity of black and brown bodies. I would like to thank our elders for their commitment to creating a safe space for us to express our anger and our pain. I want to thank them for continuing to love us in a way that causes them to intensely work to see systems and structures of injustice overturned. We have rolled up our sleeves and revealed our scars. We've cut ourselves open. We pray that our blood, which has emerged, will continue to move our sisters and brothers. We believe at the heart that love is a moral obligation which we must demonstrate. We will no longer talk about a love which merely dissolves into a demand for grace, for niceness, and for endless patience to keep everyone feeling comfortable, while hearts and souls continue to suffer. Love should no longer or will no longer be dodging responsibility for action. And what you ladies have heard tonight is our commitment to really love. And I'd like to take or read something from the book which I referred to earlier, which expresses what it is that I feel, and I'm sure many of you feel. In this book, the author says, I need a love that is troubled by injustice, a love that is provoked to anger when black folks, including our children, lie dead in the streets. A love that can no longer be concerned with tone because it is concerned with life. A love that has no tolerance for hate, no excuses for racist decisions, no contentment in the status quo. I need a love that is fierce in its resilience and sacrifice. I need a love that chooses justice. Our elders' wives, our leadership team are deeply committed to showing us this kind of love. They're committed to developing relationships that are deep and transformative. We will deepen our sense of connectedness through this, and as we are inspired towards a generosity that seeks to make things right. We love you all. Thank you.
praise, pour out our praise. It's your word in our lives. So we pour out our praise to you. Shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord.
Grateful to be together again for another Heart Women's Midweek.
Definitely. We are really happy to be here.
Yeah, tonight we're actually going to do something that we've done recently. We're going to have a discussion and talk about a great passage in 1 Peter chapter 1 verses 14 through 16. I'll read it and then we can get started. All right, it says, "As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance, but just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, be holy because I am holy."
Perfect. And so when we think about being holy, I think it's great to go, okay, let's go back to the Garden of Eden, because that's where it all began, right? And in the Garden of Eden, we were given an identity of image bearers. We were given boundaries, explicitly and implicitly. God told us, well, told Adam and Eve and ultimately us to obey and give us boundaries. And then he set us apart to rule like him in his image. And so tonight we will focus on that. And the title of our lesson or our discussion is Identity, Idolatry, and Holiness. And so just really starting with identity, I wanted to define that. So identity, it's defined as who are you? Identity is who you are. So who are you? That's identity. And the other one is the way you think about yourself. And so I want you to take some time to really process those two things. Identity is who you are and how you think about yourself. And in the context of our American society, I'm going to bring up just a couple things and we'll discuss it. But my first question for you again is, do you know who you are? And this is important because then you kind of go down a rabbit hole with that one, right? Do you know who you are? And so I think in America, pop culture really defines us. We're really into just the fads and the different things that come around. But pop culture and race are two things that are polarizing in our community, in our nation. And I actually thought about one of the things that really sticks out for us in America are songs. There's songs define every era in America. And I thought about two songs that's really interesting for this time in society that really defines America and how America really, in identity, our identity is based on separation. It's not based on true unity as we have in the Garden of Eden, which is why we're going to constantly go back there as disciples. So the first song I thought about, I don't know if you guys have heard about it. It's called I'm Proud to Be an American. It's kind of like, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. Okay, so I'm the one with the least best voice here. So okay, but that song kind of re-emerged in September, like after September 11th. If you guys remember the terror attacks, and it just seemed like America was so unified and everybody was holding on to their flag singing I'm proud to be an American. But that song actually came out way before that, I think in the 80s. But the other song was Say It Loud.
I'm black and I'm proud.
Oh, and so that one was released about 4 months after Martin Luther King's assassination. But it's interesting to me because there is that divide, because I don't know how many other people would be singing the last few parts of that verse. Yeah. Usually if you say it loud, you'll have a group of other black people saying I'm black and I'm proud, because you get that. Yeah. But there's a separation there. One part of a community understands and another part doesn't. I'm proud to be an American, and evokes some things different in different groups. So the other one was movies, right? I Googled movies. And I Googled classic American movies. And the ones that came up were Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, Grapes of Wrath, It's a Wonderful Life, ... right? Yeah. So you can kind of think through what the rest would be. Then I Googled some other movies. And maybe you can take a guess at what you think I Googled to get those classic other movies. But it was Coming to America, Eve's Bayou, Mahogany, and Waiting to Exhale. And it's interesting because I bet some of you have never heard about Mahogany. It's a great movie to go look. It's an amazing love story. But again, there's a separation, something that's classically American. There is exclusion in that as well. And so when we talk about identity, I think it's important to understand in our nation, we're defined not as equals. There are uneven scales used, and that's not how God defines us, because God defines us once and for all at the foot of the cross. Yeah. All equal. So God gives us a whole person approach, while our society doesn't. Yeah. And I wanted to get your thoughts on when you think of identity.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting? When I think of identity, and I think of how important identity is to all of us and to even like our nation, I think of identity theft and how that's such a big thing. Like, we're all terrified of having identity theft or fraud happen to us. And if this has happened to you, or again, you probably know of it because it's a big fear of ours, but somebody steals our identity, our government ID number, and they can do what they will with it, and it can affect our even in some ways our standing. If somebody steals your identity and then ruins your credit, or there's so many things that can happen, but we're terrified of losing or of getting our identity stolen. But what I actually think has happened, and even as all of these have been coming up, the racism or being more aware of the racism, it's been around for a while, and the even with COVID being out and kind of realizing how much stock and how much faith we put in just the way our normal life runs, I think a lot of times what we should be more afraid of is giving away our identity, or just not knowing what it is, like or putting our identity in something that isn't stable and isn't meaningful.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think for me, when I think about identity, I do think a lot about what validates my identity. Because I just doing a lot of reflection, there's so many parts of us, right? Like when you think about who you are, so many pieces come together to make that. Right. And so I think
the issue can be even in American society is it does have this kind of feedback value. You know, whatever I'm getting from outside is kind of confirming my identity, but even defining it in so many ways. I think that's what I realized, like the reaction I get from people, the, you know, social media response, you know, that I get. Like, we have put together systems to validate our identity, but it never becomes like something that is core from the inside that can withstand like whatever external pressures, right? And so I think even when you're talking about the identity theft, it does feel like so much can take from us the core of our identity. And I think that is so different as image bearers, right? Like, because God has this approach of, you are who you are, you find who you are within me, but a lot of times it's flipped right here in our society where you find who you are on the outside, you know, and that becomes so much of what you decide is your core, and how you say, this is what I like, this is who I am, this is where I go, these are the people I hang out with. So identity becomes compiled from all this external feedback, and not necessarily internally this core part of us, like being an image bearer of God.
Yeah, I really like what you said, because I think as you were saying that, I was visualizing the whole concept of a home base, right? So when you're playing baseball, you know, you have a home base, and the goal is to get back home. You know where home is. And so if you're stuck between first and second, and you can't get, you know, well, not first and second, the third and the home, you kind of toggle between that until you can get to home, but you know your destination. And I think that spiritually is the same thing, right? If you know, gosh, back to the garden, who I was created to be, who I am, that's your home base. So every time you start kind of getting away from it, or you're kind of in limbo, you know, I just need to get home. But if you don't know where home is, then it affects what you worship. Right? You know that song, I'm proud to be an American, or at least I know I'm free, how it goes on. And then it goes on to say that there are those who died for me. And so basically it's based on, these people died for me so I can have the right to do whatever I want. And I have the right to not wear a mask. I have the right to go ahead and put your life in danger. You know, I have the right to smoke and let you have my secondhand smoke. You know, it's like on and on and on, right? All these rights. But I think when we talk about going back to the garden and understanding who we are supposed to be as Christians, that we are image bearers, that comes with boundaries, right? So God gave us freedom, but he gave us freedom that came with healthy boundaries. Whereas the freedom, what we bring from the world with us, especially in our American society, is I have the freedom to do whatever I want. And if you say something that is infringing on my freedom, now it's cancel culture. So we have all these things that are coming in, and we as Christians have got to get rid of some of that language, because that language is not godly. We have to go back to freedom in Christ comes with boundaries. And that is very important.
I totally agree with that, because I think that you must have boundaries with your freedom. It makes me think about Jesus in Philippians 2. He embodied that. He was 100% God on earth. He had every right to infringe upon other people's freedom. You know, it would have been just. It would have been him making it right. But he didn't. He was meek, and he was humble. And I think American culture does have this ethnocentric side of it, or part of it, where it's like, whatever I want, my culture supersedes your culture. The way I do things is better than the way you do things. And it doesn't have those boundaries within, like, the freedoms, like the way Jesus did. He had boundaries, he had a meekness with it, so it didn't just go here or there. And I think that's kind of cultivating identity in a godly way, is having healthy boundaries around your identity. It can't just be kind of, because if we don't, right, then we kind of are everywhere, you know, like that's the issue. Good and bad, we're everywhere with our with our identity, if we don't have those boundaries around it. And it's interesting, because then you really have to figure out what your boundaries are, where you put those boundaries. Because if your boundaries are completely based on, you know, I'm an American, then your identity would be based off of that. Whereas in the Garden of Eden, the boundaries were set by God, and it was set by him, it was from him, and it's now at this time, I think it's so easy that we get our boundaries and our identity from the country we live in, or where we're from, what family we're from, instead of, okay, well, are we going back to the original boundaries that God gave us and basing our identity off of that? And it's interesting that we're even talking about this in the, in the grand scheme of things, because right now it's so, it's been so hard. I feel like for me, I've been having an identity crisis, I have to be honest, because I associate with, okay, part of my identity is my family. I belong to my mom, Kim, and my stepdad, George, and I have certain boundaries with that. And then I also identify as American. I wasn't born here, actually, but I moved here. I've lived here my whole life, basically. And now I totally do associate with that song that you mentioned, Proud to be American, at least I know I'm free. And recently, this identity crisis has started because I've realized I've sang that song proudly before, and now I feel like I can't sing it proudly anymore. I think all of the things that have come up recently, the racial injustices, and realizing it's not just happening now, it's been happening a long time, and I just haven't been aware. I think there are moments in my life where I saw it, but recently I went to Target, because Target's the best, right? And I was looking for a mixed doll for my niece, Harper, she's a mix of Black Dominican and white, and she's gorgeous. And I was looking for a dark-skinned doll with curly hair. And let me tell you, there were a whole bunch of white dolls. And they all looked the same to me. They had slightly different colored hair, but I could find dark-skinned dolls, but with straight hair. Or I could find, some dark-skinned dolls, but with, but there was such a small amount of them that, and I felt like I could find, I found a white doll of, every one of my children, but I could not find a doll that looked like Harper. And it was breaking my heart, and I realized, how have I never noticed this before? How have I never walked through these aisles and realized, wow, there's a difference here. And it makes me think of, okay, how long have I just been missing this? How have I not realized this? And it almost makes me feel like ashamed in thinking of the times that I have proudly sung this song and realizing that many of you can't sing this song thinking, oh, I really am free. At least I know I'm free, because the way that you are treated in your everyday life is not in freedom. It is not in equality. And it has just made me realize, again, this identity crisis. Okay, so I am an American, but I'm just realizing my whole kind of worldview has changed. And I even like to think that I was pretty aware, but I think it's been uncomfortable. It's been uncomfortable. But I think the heart of Jesus, what I've learned, the heart of Jesus, it's okay to be uncomfortable. It is okay to sit here and think about, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean about me? What does this mean? And even making it that it doesn't really matter how I feel about it. It is okay for me to just be uncomfortable right now, because other people have been uncomfortable with this for years and have been living this. And now I get to have a glimpse of that. And what is the heart of Jesus? What is the heart of God? Is it to skip out and let me get out of this uncomfortability as fast as possible, and let's just not talk about that anymore because it's uncomfortable for me? And I think that's very American, but that's not the heart of God, and that's not the heart of Jesus. And my identity, if it's rooted in God, my boundary lines that I'm setting need to be also around the heart of God and what He calls us to be.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the comfort, Jenny, and I think I'm going to talk about Romans 1:21-25. I'm actually going to read it. It says, let me get to it here. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served what has been created instead of the Creator, who is praised forever. Amen. And I love this coming into, because one of our idols in America is comfort. Yep. And let's be honest. We can say, comfort, but we have many others, right? Your brand names. Yeah. We love our brand name purses. We love our brand name shoes. We love our gear. Even our kids start really early. Yeah. I know my kids, it's in my house, it's a Nike house. I can't buy anything else for them. Well, Tristan doesn't care, but Tyler and Tim, it's all Nike. Yeah. But we worship the Nike gods. Right. And so it's important to understand that we worship a lot of things. Yes. And when you talked about comfort, I really appreciated you sharing just your own identity crisis and what you're going through, because I feel like I'm having an identity crisis too. Yeah. But one of the things I'm learning, going back to the Garden of Eden, is none of us are innocent, right, in the church. Because as a fellowship, we tout diversity. We tout unity. And we have brought into the church the hurts from the world on both parts, and the views of the world. So there's been, whether we want to admit it or not, and again, this is where we've got to be uncomfortable. You know, the Bible says if your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault, right? And if he won't listen to you, bring it to the church. It also says if you know someone has something against you, before you leave the altar and you go and reconcile with that person. I think that one, Matthew 5, is the hardest one, and is the one I believe with all my heart all of us are guilty of. It has been uncomfortable for me to go and leave my gift at the altar and go show someone, because I have not wanted to deal with the backlash. I have not wanted to deal with someone saying to me or questioning me or gaslighting me. I haven't wanted to do that. So in all actuality, I need to say, brother, sister, forgive me. Jenny, forgive me for not showing you how even when you weren't aware of it, you may have sinned against me or other brothers and sisters. How can we truly be ministers of the word if we don't understand what it is to be at the foot of the cross? Look at each other as whole people and say, you see my color, I see your color, but that doesn't matter because we are image bearers of God. What matters is we know what we face in the world and we're there for each other. But if we get to the place of saying, I'm so tired of talking about it, no one ever gets tired of talking about pornography. No one ever gets tired about talking about the other sins, the greed, the slander, the gossip, which women really struggle with, right? A lot of gossip, a lot of slander. You know, we disciple people about relationships and all of that. Actually, you need whole people to have really, truly, how great will we be in the world when people see we're actually addressing each other as true equal individuals, not dancing around issues or trying to be comfortable. So, you know, that's what I think. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are.
No, I was, like, as you were talking, I was thinking about, you know, how comfort has been an idol for me, and how that has probably hindered so much of what God wants to do for our unity and our diversity as a body. And I was thinking about how, for me, I had to realize I was compartmentalizing some of the things I was feeling, you know, as a member of the body, right? There were certain spaces I felt safer than others because I had internalized this belief that as a Black woman, I wasn't as valuable, or I didn't deserve to be in spaces with people who are not of color. You know, I didn't deserve to be in those spaces. I grew up believing that because I heard that. I grew up down south. I've literally heard people tell me, you know, get out of our neighborhood. So I just believe that I didn't deserve to be in those spaces unless I really achieved very highly. And I had internalized even that insecurity. When we talk about identity, that was one of the things I kind of clothed myself with, that you kind of don't really belong to be in these white spaces, but like, you know, you belong in these other spaces. So it hindered the way I built friendships. I think it probably hindered my transparency with my sisters and my brothers because I felt like there was a part of myself that was not accepted, and so I needed to hide it. And I definitely feel like when you have to continuously, that's something that has been revealed to me in the discomfort. When I haven't let it be an idol and I've just given over to God protecting me in all ways and being my comfort, I realized, wow, I don't even address these things in my heart because I didn't know that there was I didn't feel like there was a safe space, even with God, to say, I don't feel valuable in this space. That became an insecurity for me. You know, like there's certain spaces I don't deserve to be in. Well, you can't really separate the messages. You know, like there's a reason we get them, but they're there. And so I think that for me, that was huge about realizing, like, man, like even that song, I'm proud to be American because I know I'm free. I had to realize I don't necessarily always feel free. You know, like, and that is something that I could bring into the fellowship of that feeling. Like, I'm not really free. I'm not free to be myself. I'm not free to speak Ebonics, whatever it is, like, you know, or have this certain slang because that could mean in a culture, you know, that I'm uneducated, whatever it is. I realized I was keeping that in a pocket, and God really broke that wall down for me, I think, with everything going on. I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to feel like oh, I have to put this out into the light and know that there's spaces I don't feel enough in because of the color of my skin. Or I can just internalize the judgment I know I'm getting when I'm somewhere. I had to like break down that wall with God for all the maybe hate or, you know, even prejudice in my heart because of that, you know, all the pride of wanting to be better, whatever it is, because I need to prove something. I need to break that down so my identity didn't come in needing to prove something because of the color of my skin, but just to be and belong, you know, and be transparent. And I think that, like you're saying, the awareness that it brings everyone when I'm transparent about it, you know, because comfort's not my idol, that I'll have the hard conversation. That is so hard to do that, because like I share with you the gaslighting, or like, are you sure that's how it was? And so I think for me, really realizing that comfort has become an idol and come before the will of God because of me not wanting to address those things in those spaces. But it really has changed the way I orient myself with my brothers and sisters, being able to break down that wall.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I think it's times like these that are gonna set us apart. Yes. You know, because even as you guys are talking, and actually I wanted to ask a clarifying question for myself, but I've heard this word gaslighting a lot, and I would love if you guys could describe like what that means for you. I think I understand, but one of the things I've realized is there's a lot of things that I wasn't aware of or didn't realize I was doing, and now I'm like, oh wait, did I ever do that to somebody? So could one of you describe like what that means so that I can know, okay, like as people, because this is the thing that I think is special, it's talking about it. Like we're talking about it now, and I think it can be uncomfortable. I'll be honest, when this all began, I was uncomfortable asking people how they were feeling about it or talking about it because I wondered, are they going to want to hear from me? Like I don't know what they went through, that they're not going to talk to a white person. That's what I was thinking. But then I realized, wait a second, and actually you helped me out, Sam, because I was like, no, like we listen to each other. Like when I'm talking about my sin, I'm not going to go seek out a person who is like me in that way just to talk to them. I'm going to talk to anyone about my sin because that's my boundary line with God. God is my identity. I'm going to be vulnerable and share with anybody. So anyway, I just wanted to get some clarification because as we're talking about it more, I think it'll be helpful for me and for maybe others like me to know like what that looks like. So we're not, so we can be set apart. We can be different in even how we respond.
Yeah. No, that's great. Mimo actually taught me really about gaslighting because it's something that I'm originally not even from America. And so my paradigm, I missed a lot of, I've been gaslighted many times and it went over my head and under my feet. But Mimo really helped me understand it better, so please.
Yeah, so gaslighting is a term, and sometimes it's used in like domestic situations. So basically it's when you present like your perception of something, or this is how I'm feeling, and someone basically invalidates your perception of your emotions. Like, oh, I think that I was feeling this, or I think this is how it made me feel, and someone basically changes the narrative for you. Like, oh no, I think that probably wasn't like that, or are you sure, or you were kind of doing this, like to basically invalidate the emotional experience that you're having. And so in terms of racial unrest and things like that, or racial injustice, it's basically about, you know, as people of color, and I think because of the dominant culture in America, and that dominant culture not having the same experiences that we're having, and not understanding the systematic and systemic racism that we're dealing with from day to day, when we say, oh, I feel like when I went into that store and someone was following me, they're like, they probably were just trying to like make sure everything was okay. But you know that person followed you from, you know, little section to section. Or, you know, I think when this person talked to me, they kind of were talking down to me like I was ignorant. And I think that might have something to do with, you know, the way they perceive me because of the color of my skin. Are you sure? They probably just thought you needed help. It's just really kind of disorienting people to their emotional experience, because it's like, oh, it's not really like that. And so racially, a lot of times what happens is people invalidate people of color's experiences with discrimination or prejudice or racism because they don't see the world that way. And so it's about validating that experience. And a lot of times, right, because people don't want to feel uncomfortable. Because if that's true, people are really treating you like that. That's what's happening. People sometimes have a hard time even dealing with that reality. So it can happen for a lot of reasons, but it really does, I think, make people of color not really want to bring to light the experiences they're having outside of spaces of color, who can relate to those experiences as well, because they don't want to feel like they're getting gaslit because, oh, I don't think that's really what was happening to you. So it doesn't make the space safe. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great. I think, thank you for asking for that clarification. But I think as we've talked about the Garden of Eden, and this is constantly where we're trying to go back to, as we've spent an ample amount of time on identity and come into the idolatry part about we will worship what we identify with. And this is important. And I know we have, you know, a huge group of women in our fellowship, and some people may feel like, why are we talking about this? Why aren't we digging more into the Bible on some deeper media issues? Why? And I will say this, God does not make mistakes. He doesn't. And I would ask you, why that question? Why that question? This is important because this is going to make it easier for you to study the Bible with other women not like you. There are some black women who are uncomfortable with studying with white women. There's some white women who don't feel like they connect. And you know, we do it in the church. If somebody brings an Indian friend in, we find Jeff. Let's just be honest. You know, if someone brings a West Indian, a St. Lucian in, they find me, myself, or Eartha. You know, and it's, guys, we do this. And I think this, we want to ask ourselves why. We all do it. You know, and so I will say one of the people I really want to encourage is just Laurence. I will say Laurence will pull anybody into a study. She just wants somebody in there. You know, she will, whoever is available, she will get into any study. And I really appreciate that. And I think we really need to highlight that with each other. There should not be, because you have an all-white group, you can't study the Bible with a black woman. Shame on us for that. Shame on us. We have to do better with that, because it's not just the staff that needs to do it, it's all of us. And we've got to go, what is it within us that makes us feel like we don't connect, when at the foot of the cross we're equal? And that's what we're bringing people into. And finally, you know, we are going to talk about holiness, and that is the cusp of it, right? This is kind of us going full circle. We've talked about identity, really calling you guys, and this could feel like a hard lesson to some people. Please call us up. We are willing to have the discussions. We want to have the discussions because Hartford will be a beacon of light and hope to our community. People will come in and feel like they belong here. Whether they have become a member or not, they will come in and feel, these people see me, right? You see me. You're not, even if there's uncomfortability, you're willing to be uncomfortable with me. I love that. And you know, I was converted in New Hampshire, and I still remember it. And I'm grateful for the people who are there. But I felt like people really tried to know me. They really did in that group. There was nobody else to know me because I was the only black person in that group. But I felt like people really took the time to love me and had me in their homes and asked me questions, which were sometimes uncomfortable questions. But I really do have to recommend, I really have to commend that church for just the love that was poured into me and the willingness to get in my space and have me in their space. With holiness in 1 Peter is what you read. Do you have it up still? Maybe you can read it one more time.
It says, it's in 1 Peter 1:14-16. As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. But just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, be holy because I am holy.
Okay. So I'm going to read this statement because it's not going to do justice if I try to say it out loud. Holiness is not simply being moral and righteous. It goes deeper than that. It is about being set apart, different from what is common to the world. And I love that, right? That's set apart. It's not just about being good. It's not just about doing what's right. It's being set apart. Doing it like God. Being in the image of God. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah. I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it reminds me of the home base analogy you brought up. Like, when we're set apart, we have to remember what our home base is, who it is, and it's God. And so to be set apart, you have to know what it is you're being set apart from and what it is you're trying to be like, what you're being set apart with. And I love that the scripture, and many times in the Bible actually, it will say, be holy because I am holy. God will say, be holy because I am holy. And thinking about, what does that mean? Be set apart because I am set apart. I think of all the scriptures that talk about, they will know, oh gosh, now I'm forgetting the scripture. but they will know who you are about how you love one another.
Yes, that's perfect. No, that's great.
But yes, there's so many scriptures though, but we have to think of, okay, if we're going to be set apart, who are we aligning ourselves with? And I know you had said this earlier, Mimo, when we were talking about this, and if we're going to be set apart and be like Jesus, we have to think about, okay, what was Jesus like? What was his life like? It wasn't about comfort. I mean, I think we could all agree that Jesus' life was not about being comfortable the whole time. And if I'm going to make comfort my, if I'm going to, have that be my idol, then I'm not aligning myself with who I'm saying I'm following, which is God. And so it's kind of thinking, and maybe you can go into that a little bit more, but really thinking, who am I being set apart for? I committed to being a disciple of Jesus. Yeah. So I need to be set apart, and my boundary lines need to be Jesus' boundary lines, and looking at his life instead of what would make me comfortable.
Yeah, I think that with our being set apart with God, I feel like it reminds me of Romans 12 too, where it talks about not conforming to the patterns of the world, because I think that there is a 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of mindset we can have sometimes. And holiness is a transformation of our minds. We have to renew our minds. We cannot look at things the same way. We have to get God's perspective on everything, right? We have to think about, if we're going to be holy as God is holy, like you said, we have to align ourselves with the way Jesus was. We can't be afraid to sit in those spaces of discomfort. Jesus wasn't, with the poor, with the hurting, with the sick. He didn't say, I really pray for you and I hope you get better. He went into those uncomfortable spaces. Yeah. He endured through that with people. Yeah. It was heavy. He was empathetic. It hurt. Yes. It wasn't a dazzling experience for him all the time. It wasn't sensational. Yes. We talked about that earlier. We live in a sensational society. We escape from thing to thing, from, movie to TV show to, bar to dinner, whatever, food. We just try to find something to help us feel better or deal, but we never sit down with it. That is such a godly characteristic, to sit and endure through our suffering, right? To let perseverance finish its work like it talks about in James 1. So I think that really being holy as God is holy, we do have to align ourselves with Christ, who is familiar with suffering. We do have to align ourselves with him and not run away from this. Even as Sam was talking about, that idea of can we kind of move on from talking about it? And I think it's absolutely valid to take space and rest when things are mentally engaging and overwhelming. It is overwhelming, but I think to take a break and live in that break from what's going on isn't realistic. It's not going to be transformative if we just kind of try to find ways around it. We have to deal with the world we're living in. I think a lot of times people don't want to sit with that discomfort because of the idolatry. This world has to be enough. This world has to, fix my wounds, be a safe place for where I'm at, and it has to be okay. If there's an unjust world, then what am I going to do? That I live and I'm here on this earth in this space. I really do think that we have to really put our hope in heaven. And I think we really have to be transformed, let our minds be renewed, because I think that's how we know how to be holy.
Yes. And I think you said earlier, you said break up with the world, right?
Yes, right? Yes. We have this love affair, with the world, this love affair that, we're just so endeared towards all the amazing travel spots, everything's aesthetically pleasing. We just really do fall in love with this beautiful version with the world. But we really do have to break up with it. And when we break up with the world, we feel heartache, just like a real breakup. Yeah. The disappointment, seeing what we were really doing or the relationship we had and all the holes that it has in it. And I think we have to be okay to go through that with God, because we want to let our minds be renewed and transformed. Because when I love my idols, I love my idols.
Mine too.
They comfort me. They bring me something. Yes. But they do have limitations. And I think that's what we don't want to see. We don't want to see the limitations of our idols, but that's really where we begin to see the holiness of God.
Yep. We've got to break up with the world, as Mimo said. And we've got to be able to say, world, it's not you. It's me. Yeah. I've changed. I'm holy now. And I'm going to strive to be holy. I'm going to go back to my garden. We can't live together anymore. I got to go home. I got to go home to my God. And so it's not you, it's me. And if we're not willing to do that, then we cannot really call ourselves set apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I even think about, because sometimes for me, I think about, okay, like, so what am I going to do with this? Like, how do I apply this? And, you know, I just think of, okay, be holy because I am holy. Okay, so what else can I do that's like God or like Jesus? You know, talk to those who, you know, were neglected or rejected in society, because God would do that. Be vulnerable because God would do that.
Yes.
You know, and I just think of all the things, and what I know I want to do, even in inspiration from this, is go back and see how Jesus lived his life, what Jesus did, who he talked to. He didn't see the blind man and say, I want to go that way. I don't want to deal with the blind man.
Yes.
He went to the blind man. He went to the injured. He went to the sick. He went to the people who were rejected. And he listened to them. He cried with them. He wept with them. And it helps me so much to think of this in a positive way. Like, okay, not, oh man, I can't do all these things I was doing before, so what do I do now? It's like, what can I do instead? I'm going to be holy because God was holy.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's good, Jenny. And I think Jesus also didn't say, I don't know what to say, so I'm not going to say anything.
Right? Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of love. You say it.
Yeah.
And go
No,
ahead.
I was thinking that. I was like, it's like a lazy thinking. When you're talking about the studies and like, oh, I'm kind of going to push over here. And I get the idea. Like, there are cultural, like, differences in everyone, right? So we want to put people with people who are more culturally similar. But the lack of initiative to learn and understand, you know what I mean? That's not Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, he takes the initiative to understand our being. That's why we're so in love with him.
Yes.
Because he allows us to belong with him. But we live differently. We're sinners. He's not a sinner, but he tried to understand why we struggle with it. He tried to put himself in our space to get it. And I think we have to have the same thing. And I think when we're trying to be holy, as Jesus was holy, we do have that. We have those boundaries around.
Yeah.
I think the way that we're looking and thinking about things, because we want to imitate him in that way. We want to have that holiness like him. I think that is so, so important.
Yeah. Well, guys, I hope this discussion was helpful to you. We, again, talked about going back to the garden. We talked about our identity, our idols, and getting back to holiness, which, again, full circle going back to the garden. I know that, as Jenny mentioned, the practicals and what she was suggesting about the action plan, I think one of the things that I want to leave you with are the boundaries. You know, we do Galatians 5:19 through 21 a lot in the sin study. We don't tend to go through 22 and 23, is it? You know, where we are talking about those boundaries, the love, the faithfulness, all those fruits of the Spirit. If you are looking for boundaries in your Christian life, God has given them to you. Here are your fruits of your Spirit. Those are your boundaries. Are you being loving? Are you being kind? Are you being faithful? Are you in all of your interactions? So we leave you with that. We hope that was helpful for you. We will have many more of those. So please let us know what you would like us to talk about. But the goal is to get deeper and to get back to the garden and to be whole in our relationships. And we want to lead the charge in our relationship.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
Love you guys. To God be the glory.